starting with actor Tom Goodman-Hill. Actor Nava. Creator, writer, and actor Gadd. Hello, everyone. Congratulations. What a last few months. Richard, if you were to describe what life has been like since April, what is one word that you would use to describe your life?
One word.
Just one word. You're a writer. You can condense.
Yeah, it's been mental, I suppose. It's been overwhelming.
In a good way, hopefully, mostly good?
Yeah, mostly.
Okay. Mostly good, okay.
Yeah, no, it's just been crazy, you know, it was obviously such a, it's quite a cheap show to make by network by streaming standards, and, you know, it's quite an idiosyncratic show, and it's you know, it's a very singular point of view, and it's obviously got so much.
Everything we look for in a good show.
Yeah.
Truly.
Oh, right, yeah,
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you for making this show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
No small thing.
Yeah, and I suppose you know, it's quite idiosyncratic, but it's struck a chord with so many people like around the globe. So it's just been crazy, and I don't think any of us expected this kind of level of response. But it's been amazing.
I'm happy to hear that. So a few accolades to share with everyone. Baby Reindeer premiered in April. Instantly became one of Netflix's most watched and talked about series for its groundbreaking depictions of mental illness, sexual assault, and trauma, among many other important topics. The show won Breakthrough Limited Series Award at the inaugural Gothams in June, and earned 11 Emmy nominations, and won twice this past weekend for casting and editing. And I was telling these guys backstage, casting and editing are often harbingers of a series win, so fingers crossed for this weekend. Yes. So, Richard, you have described the prospect of turning your one-man show, which is now very storied, and you have talked about this for many months, turning this one-man show into a television show, calling it, quote, bouts of giddiness followed by bouts of panic that everyone's gonna know my shit. Totally fair, by the way. Totally fair. So my question is, how did you overcome those feelings, which are very natural, that I think any of us would have, and channel them into this process, which writing a television show for TV, for a streaming network, is not the same thing as a one-man show. So tell me how you took those feelings of reservation and poured them onto the page.
I think with any feelings of, I think I've got quite a self-punishing way of writing, and a self-punishing way of going about like making work and stuff like that. I started having a live space and doing kind of live shows and stuff like that, and I just think I kind of sacrificed my life to obsessively kind of work. So I think I feel a lot of anxiety when I go around writing stuff and doing stuff, and I feel a lot of like worry around it, and a need, you know, to want to not waste people's time if they want to tune in and watch it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I put myself through quite a grueling sort of writing. So it's not like I alleviate my anxieties, but I think my way of dealing with them is to kind of obsessively, rigorously work.
Had you written a TV script before?
Yeah, I'd written on sex education and stuff like that.
Okay. So you knew the format, you knew such
Yeah. I mean, I spent my entire life kind of trying to get into television, and yeah, I came from like a comedy background. But I spent my dream was to always. Well, my dream was I grew up watching the UK Office, and which is the better one.
I totally agree.
Controversial, but I appreciate that. That was a risky.
I can second that.
Yeah. But yeah, you were in it. Yeah. You were in it. Yeah. I forgot about that. What's he been up to since? You know, Jesus, dark trajectory. Put the two shows together, and anyway. But yeah, no, it's ever since I grew up watching that show when I was a kid, and I could quote it all kind of off by heart, and I would research into, you know, the makers of that show, and I realized they'd written it and they were in it, and I was like, that's what I want to do, and that's what kind of led to Baby Reindeer. But I obsessively wrote television scripts. I just couldn't get anything away. You know, I came close so many times. Like I
So
never.
you saw the power and you adapted your own theatrical IP, because now it's all about adapting the source. And so you adapted yourself here.
Yeah. Because Baby Reindeer was a play, and then I did the play at the Edinburgh Festival, transferred to London. It was going to go to the West End, but then COVID struck and sort of took it away at the last minute. But yeah, it was adapting a kind of 70-minute one-man monologue into a kind of 7-part Netflix series. So it was a big undertaking. But, yeah.
That's putting it mildly. You did a really big thing, so I hope you understand how important it is. It's really very impressive. There are many aspiring writers and people who work and their whole lives for something like this, so we're very impressed with you.
Oh, thank you.
And in terms of compiling and assembling this incredible cast, which is really one of the most incredible ensembles of acting I've seen in many years. Yes, let's clap again. I would love for you to tell me for each character, what, and back to my one-word rule because it's fun, what was the most important thing that each of these actors needed to bring to these roles? So what did Jessica need to have in order to play Martha?
Wow, I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, many things. I think that, Jess, I've always loved seeing Jess and stuff like I knew of Jess before Jess edition of Baby Reindeer. And I think that a lot of amazing sort of actors auditioned for Martha, and there were so many. But I think the one thing I was actually looking for, I think, was actually somebody who manages to kind of almost prioritize the kind of cuteness, the kind of in a lot of ways, like the kind of the vulnerability, the lightness, almost in a way. I wanted people to understand what Donnie saw in her.
She's very charming.
Yeah, and like captivating and cute and kind of. I actually sort of, it almost paradoxically, I think a lot of actors came in and they played it like a stalker. Right. And Martha doesn't think she's a stalker. And so you needed somebody who totally, and the thing, which, I mean, there's scenes where she's doing like 5-6 things at once, you know, like vulnerable, scary. You know,
it's a lot like Kathy Bates in Misery. This was, and Kathy Bates was very cute at the beginning of Misery, and then she wasn't. And I think she captured a lot of that nuance of this person's hurting, but she's also very sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually wanted, I wanted a childlike kind of energy when it came to Martha, almost like an innocence in a weird way. And Jess was kind of the only one to get that. But it was unbelievable. I remember like when Jess came into audition, and I loved Jess before she auditioned, and I really wanted to go out and I subtly ceded her name to everyone before she came in. But she was acting, and I just remember kind of leaning forward, kind of in the chair, and thinking, oh, we found her, you know, and fucking hell, I could pick through your paces. It took some convincing. Everyone was convinced, but so much goes into
well,
it.
And Jessica, tell me what you felt reading the script. Did this feel immediately like someone you could inhabit, or did it feel like a wonderful challenge and you were just so eager for this challenge?
Yeah, I've said before, when I read, I think it's one of the best things I've ever read, and so I read it in one go, and I think I just connected to the part. I never, like Rich was saying, I never actually saw her as a villain or as a stalker in that way. I connected very much to the character's cuteness and vulnerability, and so I didn't, I was practicing one of the scenes with a friend of mine for the audition, the scene I think you saw today where she says she wants to zip someone open and climb the side, and I was like, oh my god, this is my favourite scene, it's so romantic, and I gave my friend the part, and then she was like, this is terrifying. I really was shocked because I was like, oh no, yes. Scary. In my head, it was like the most romantic scene of the day. She wants to squirrel away inside him because she feels safe, And so that was my first kind of inkling that maybe we were onto something, because my friend's reaction was maybe what an audience's would be or what Donnie's would be, whereas mine was like, oh, actually, I think that it's actually really romantic. What you're saying, Tim? And then I think just chemistry-wise, it's really lovely to hear the behind the scenes things that goes on. That Richard felt like that when I first came in, but I came in 5 more times, so it would have been nice to have known that from the start. It was always me, was it? It's such a fine chemistry you got to get right. And 4 months later, I got the job.
I thought from the start. Yeah.
So, okay, thank you so much for that, and you are very cute, I must say. If I may say that to you, you bring a lot of cuteness to this terrifying role.
Losing it in the past 5 minutes now.
So, let's talk about Terry.
Yeah.
When you were casting Terry, again, I'm keeping you to one word. What was the one thing you were looking for in the performer to inhabit Terry?
Oh, I mean, I don't think I can do the one word thing. It's so tricky because I would say like vulnerability. If I was going to pick one, but I think it's almost too simplistic. I think the Terry search was exhausting. We saw so many people.
Is that the toughest role to cast?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. We saw people in the UK, we saw people in Europe, we saw people all around the globe actually. But I think the part's really Terry's the voice of reason in the show, and the kind of moral ambassador for the show, and almost the audience point of view, like questioning Donnie, why is he behaving this way? But it's very tricky because she's staying in a relationship even though she knows it's harming her, which I think a lot of people do. But when it comes to a television show, it's very hard to wrap your head around it because why doesn't she just leave? Why is she putting up with
This
this?
show very much is about things that we're drawn to that we know are bad for us. And
Yes.
each person is sort of wrestling with that theme.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think like Terry has a go at Donnie quite a lot, but I think it's quite a fine line, and Nava really manages to capture the kind of vulnerability and the ability to kind of have a go at Donnie while still remain justifiable, likable, charismatic, all these things.
She calls him out on his shit.
Yeah, exactly.
She needs, right?
Yeah, and still remains like really, likable and charismatic and all these kinds of things. And Nava flew over, and we did a chemistry read. She threw a bottle at my head in the middle of the scene. Was it a bottle? In the spur of the moment, I thought that's commitment. We've got
Let's hear Nava's side of the story.
It's not a bottle, it was a camera bag. It didn't hit your head, it went past your head.
She was passionate. She was getting into character.
Yeah.
So, Nava, now I want to hear your side of the story. So, firstly, I want to acknowledge Nava has made history this year by being the first trans actor to be nominated for a performance in a limited series. Very momentous time. And as Richard said, Terry is the voice of reason in the show. But what's interesting, and I've only known you for one day, but you project this similar tone. You feel and you come across as someone who feels very assured and peaceful. And I was reading about you, and you actually have done some therapy work and some counseling work in your life. So I'm curious, how much of yourself did you see in Terry, and how much of this character felt new to you?
I think I kind of got lost in Terry immediately because it was so intuitive, and so after that sort of departure from my previous reality before Terry, I had to then figure out, okay, where are the lines that differentiate us, and kind of what is her purpose in the story, and I think one of the things that I had to really build out, which is not what I think people have celebrated about her, and it's like so amazing and honestly been so surprising to me when people are like saying she's the voice of reason and she's so strong. And what I had to build out was the turmoil. What I had to build out was, why is she in this relationship? And if she is so clear-headed, why can't she see herself and what she's doing? And so I had to build out.
Because she's flawed too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful work. I think we all wish we had a Terry in our lives.
Me too.
So beautifully written and so wonderfully executed. And Tom, boy, did you have a task in this show. I mean, and not to discount any other person's work on this stage, but what you had to do in this show is really something I've never seen before, and brought again, to use the word nuance, and a twist on things that have so often been portrayed in cliche ways, and making it feel so terrifying because it feels like something that so many of us have experienced. So thank you for digging into this the way you did. It's really extraordinary. Yeah. So Richard has said about sexual assault and abuse that it isn't a pill and a drink that dissolves. It occurs in very intimate relationships, and clearly we see this played out very beautifully in this show. So again, in casting this character of Darian, this is a really hard part to play. What were you both looking for?
I would say that I think that quote's slightly wrong. It is a pill, it's also a drink as well.
Oh, it is a pill. Oh, excuse me.
I just think that's a common misconception when it comes to it. The stranger, the idea of an abuser, the stranger in the night, dark alleyway kind of thing. And I think a lot of it occurs in kind of intimate relationships and power imbalances and all these kinds of things. But when it came to Tom and the part, he's a creepy guy, you know. You're right, no, it's okay. He's the loveliest man, you know, for me. I never felt so safe as with an actor like Tom. It was amazing. But Tom was just like, he's such a good actor. He's just such a good actor. And he came in, and again with Darren, I think people, the mistake is like, it's all about believability, isn't it, when you go into an audition. You just have to kind of be believable, really. And it's easier said than done, 100%. But like, I think a lot of people came in, Darren, he's an abuser, he's a rapist, you know, that's not going to play it like an abuser and a rapist and stare beneath the eyebrows, you know, and all this kind of stuff. But Tom was charming. I understood why Donnie would be captivated by someone that charming. And again, playing it against type, he came in charming, and he's just such an accomplished actor. And yeah, he was a shoo-in. It was amazing to see.
Incredible. And I do want to talk about episode 4, which is very harrowing if you haven't seen it, but if you continue to watch, you will see it. How did you prepare for those scenes? Did you work closely with Richard? Did you take time apart? Did you rehearse for the scenes in the apartment where we see the abuse and the drug use, which is just so difficult to watch? But it's very beautifully shot, which I think makes it, you know, a little bit easier to take in. But tell me about your process before you got to stage that day.
I mean, for me, it always starts with the script. So I just read it and read that script. And I mean, the first time I was sent it, and I was sent episode 4 without getting eyes on the other 6. And so I read it as a piece on its own. And I knew of the play, and I knew that was about Richard being stalked, so it came as a huge surprise to me to know that Darian even existed. So that just sort of made me think, well, all I can do is make him as real and believable as possible. And what helped was that Richard and I had a rapport straight away, and we just talked to each other a lot and held each other's hands, and that was kind of the only way to get through what we had to do. We talked and talked and talked, and then when Richard needed to be left alone, I left him alone. And that was the only way to do it, really.
And did you know people like Darian in your own life? Had you met caricatures of people like this whom you could draw inspiration, or did this feel like kind of a new challenge for you, and just in terms of understanding how someone could act this way?
I think the thing about someone like Darian is that you may have met quite a few of them, and you'll never know. And that's part of what makes him so dangerous. Is he is a charming, easy man to be in his company, but he is incredibly dangerous and knows exactly how not to be found out. And so the only way to do that is to make him as human and charming as you possibly can.
Well, you did beautiful work, and just so everyone knows, episode 4 is a flashback, so it kind of informs Donnie's behavior throughout the show, and it's just, again, please watch, it's stunning. Congratulations, really.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you were acknowledged by the Academy, because it's really stunning. So I feel like there's another character we should address in this show, which is Martha's laugh. Jessica, I have to talk to you about this laugh. Is this a laugh that you have innately? Is this a laugh that you created for this character? Let's talk about the laugh.
It is kind of my laugh, which maybe in hindsight I should have thought about, but I went to a comedy show a few weeks ago and it was cabaret CC. My friend was like, maybe don't find this guy too funny. And I feel scared to me at the back. But no, it is kind of just, I think because script was so clear that it was this kind of infectious, laugh. I thought it needs to feel as like natural as possible because, at the heart of Donnie and Martha, they're two kind of lost people who see something in each other, and he's a comedian whose dream is to be laughed at, and I think that's the thing that most endears him first when they meet. So I just wanted it to feel as real as possible. So just trying to find Richard funny.
Did you practice?
Totally.
Did you practice this laugh before the audition? Like, okay, when I go in, I'm gonna do version 1, and did you have version 2? Like, did you have them lined up as a possibility?
No, not really. No, I think it was just I just kind of went with it a bit, and luckily Richard was happy with the laugh that we went with. I didn't realise. I think it's funny because lots of guys come up to me in the street and say your laugh is terrifying. Which I don't find it that terrifying, but it's a funny thing to think of.
People take away interesting things, don't they?
Yeah.
So this series, among so many themes, explores something that has really stuck with me, which is obviously the empathy angle. But this idea of, should we all be more discerning about to whom we give empathy? Because essentially this is a cautionary tale about, should I invite myself into this person's life who seems disturbed and seems hurting, and having to be like, you want to help, but maybe you think, maybe I shouldn't. So what does the show tell us about empathy and to whom we should give it and when? And is it up to us to help people who are hurting? It's a really hard question. I don't have an answer, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an answer either. I sort of don't like to, in fact, I think sometimes like problems with shows sometimes these days is that the moral point is so at the forefront of the kind of work, and I think ultimately I just wanted to explore kind of knotty themes and for audiences to kind of draw their own conclusion from it. I think I've always struggled with a kind of toxic empathy in my life, and
it's hard.
Yeah, and it can get, it's a weird thing, and I think it actually comes from a lack of self-esteem sometimes in a lot of ways. You're kind of displacing your own kind of feelings of lack of self-esteem.
Well, helping people feels good.
Yeah, absolutely, and exactly, and it's like an easy, and I think, like empathy can make you move in weird ways and make mistakes and all kinds of things. But I think ultimately, like, it's about the need for human connection, Baby Reindeer. And I think a lot of people are like, have you seen that stalker show? Have you seen that abuse show? And I think that's the kind of like the stuff
that's a little diminishing, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think ultimately it's about like a trauma, and it's about like the need for connection and loneliness and isolation. And I think ultimately every character in it is struggling with a trauma of some kind. Even the dad character, the dad character in it. And I think every character in it is, if you think about Terry, for example, like a history, it's not really in the show, but surely a history of sort of dysfunctional relationships with men who cannot accept themselves inside a relationship like that. And it contributes to a lack of self-worth in the character of Terry, and I think that ultimately the empathy comes from a sense of just two people needing a kind of connection in their lives. And I think that some people will take a bad connection in life because they're so afraid of being alone. And I think, like, I've only now, at my age now, kind of learned how to be alone. But I think I can do it. I can do it for 5 minutes in my life before, and I think that's why people stay in dysfunctional relationships for so long, like they should have broken up 10 years ago, but the idea of being by themselves is just so much worse.
It's also not a skill we're taught. To be happy on our own. It's something that we just have to learn, and it's very painful. And I think that Donnie is we've all felt this way. There isn't anyone in this room who hasn't felt lonely and isolated the way he does. I mean, this is just being a human.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think particularly in this day and age, there seems to be just such a kind of global suffering at the moment. And I think that in a way, that's why Baby Rangers resonated so much, because I think the world just feels it's just a bit broken right now, and so I think, the show's kind of less about empathy and more just about that kind of need for human connection. But empathy comes into it. But I never wanted it to be a cautionary tale. I never wanted to be like, look, I'll give him a free cup of tea.
Well, that's why I don't have an answer to the question, because you don't answer it for us.
Yeah,
but it's just a question that has stuck with me, because I'm someone who will, if I see someone on the street, I want to help them. And my husband sometimes has to say, maybe you don't have to talk to everyone on the street. And it's a hard thing to balance when you care. And I think that's something that the show addresses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just kind of throws the question out there and asks the audience to kind of sit with it, I suppose.
Yes, as we all have been the last few months. Nava, I see you on the precipice of an already amazing career that is about to get probably very amazing, as I'm sure the next years will show us. As you have sort of absorbed the show and this experience, what are you willing to give of yourself for success? Sort of what Donnie's wrestling with, right? And what are you not willing to give of yourself as you have many opportunities ahead of you? What is the thing you most want to hold steadfast as you navigate what I'm sure is going to be a very incredible career?
Okay, woo.
I'm telling you, the show makes you think. Blame Richard, he started.
Okay, essay question. So I started in film and TV on a $6,000 crowdfunded independent short film that I wrote, directed, produced, and starred in Oakland, California. Shout out to Oakland. And I did it without having studied and alongside mostly people from my community who also had not been on a film set before. And to me, that is still like the purest form of creativity that I've experienced, because I was not, like, I didn't even know what a film festival was. I didn't know what it was. It was about the story. And I think that I didn't feel that way until being on set of Baby Reindeer. I didn't feel that way again until Baby Reindeer. And so I feel very lucky that I know that North Star. And yes, I think there's a lot of opportunity that I never could have imagined would come my way. And I think that goes probably for all of us. But it doesn't matter because I already know what I wanted. And I already know what it feels like to believe in a story. And I already know what it feels like to be fulfilled by acting or directing. And so I just have to trust that that feeling will come again, whether I'm creating it or it slides into my inbox the way that the one scene from Baby Reindeer did in June of 2022. So, I'll know when I feel it.
So you know quality and you know what it feels like. That's a huge success unto itself.
Yeah, I know the heart.
Yeah, that is a gift, I would say, absolutely. And we're running out of time, but Tom, I would love for you to reflect just a little bit on how this role, this performance, this experience, working with these incredible people has changed you as an actor, but also personally.
You know, I've been doing this for 30 years, and
You look way too young for that. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Bless you. Hearing Richard say he saw me in the office when he was growing up makes me feel every single day age. I've been doing it for 30 years, and I've never played anything like Darian, and it saved me, this role. I really mean that when I said that to you earlier, Richard. It saved me.
Saved you in what way?
I had a couple of really difficult years, nothing was coming through, the stuff that did come through I didn't want to do, and as you guys know, I'm obsessed with new writing and issues and wanting to make work that means something. And so when this landed, it was a complete dream come true. I knew that I wanted to do it. I knew I couldn't bear for anyone else to do it. And it did. It saved me. It restored my faith in new writing and in art and made me feel like an actor again. And you can't ask for more than that.
Wow. That's a wonderful closing note. And how many people in this room are actors? Most people are actors, right? Okay. That means a lot to everyone here. I'm not an actor, and that meant a lot to me. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Congratulations, and good luck this weekend. I'm rooting for you.